Because a warship is a 24-hour operation, you always have men in here coming to eat. Typically the guys have about 20 minutes to eat before they go off watch or before they go back on duty, whatever they're supposed to do next. So there's constant activity here. And as I said, the food is going to come down the central passage, down this ladder, and be served here. Now, if you're an enlisted man, you don't get a china, you get a tray. And instead of fiddle boards, there's a lip around the edge of the table to keep your tray on the table and bed above it. The fiddle board doesn't keep your tray in front of you. That is a separate problem. And there's a couple of ways you can deal with that. First method, when I'm in the chow line, I'm going to ask the messmate to leave one of my front compartments empty of food. And as I sit at the table, I hold the tray with my elbow. Bread in this hand, eating with that hand. Or if we have enough bread, I can take a slice of bread, dip it in some water, mush it to the bottom of the tray, and then mush the bread to the table. Because people do it out. That's one of our strengths, I think, of the species. These bunks are for the 4 cooks and 2 bakers on board the ship. So if you have a complaint about the food, the man who made it is right here. And you can tell him exactly what you think about it. This may not be a good idea. Both you and he have enlisted for the duration of the war, and he's going to be making our food for a very long time. I prefer to be on good terms with the people who cook for me.
Is this the coffee pot?
Yeah, so actually the coffee was brewed right over here in this smaller kettle, and that's going to hang from the overhead. You have trouble sleeping? Because again, the ship is rocking from side to side. So you got your coffee right there.
You don't want to spill the coffee for the crew.
Definitely not. And then of course, you got these mugs. Notice there's no handles. For one, they make great weapons. You can start bashing on someone. But also, cold North Atlantic winter. You're up on the flying bridge on watch, get a cup of coffee, hold on to it, and warm up your hands a little bit.
I tell people that, let's have a moment of sympathy for the cooks. This is like running a restaurant. When we come into port, they're going to ask the supply officer to get them certain things, whatever. But if the port doesn't have them, the supply officer doesn't get them. The port's responsibility is to give the ship enough food for it to complete its next mission. So the cooks then have to take this, buffet of food of all different types and kinds, and somehow craft a nutritious, appealing menu out of it for 216 men. And out of those 216 men, I guarantee you, you could be the best cook in the world. Not everybody is going to like that dish or the way you cook. That's just human life, Plus, this does get kind of monotonous. There's only a certain number of things that you can dry or can or dehydrate, so the cook does not have a lot of flexibility in menu choice. It's hard being the cook here, I think.
If we pick up passengers, such as POWs, if we sink a German U-boat, we're required to actually rescue them out of the water. And it did happen to a few DEs. A plane crashes at sea or a ship goes down. We rescue those guys out of the water. They're going to sleep down here. Chances are the Slater guys will let them sleep in their racks, and then the Slater boys will string up their hammocks. Down here there's going to be some smells. Hopefully the food smells pretty good. We're also going to have 200 guys coming in throughout the day. A lot of them, they're teenagers, early 20s, and they're only allowed to shower once or twice a week. So they're going to smell. But also, we're a diesel ship. Throughout the ship, we have these yellow hatches. That's our fuel tanks. We can hold about 88,000 gallons of fuel. It's just under 300 tons. As that diesel's sloshing around, it's creating a bunch of fumes. You gotta vent those fumes, otherwise you're a big bomb. So throughout the ship, you're actually be venting diesel fumes into this compartment as well as others. So you got food, BO, and diesel all mixing together. So I'm sure it smelled great.
And what was the meal that they used to like to eat again?
SOS, shit on a shingle.
Yeah, I'm sure 200 guys eating shit on a shingle, that doesn't smell bad
fitting.
either.
Yeah. This is our forward berthing compartment. There's 4 of these rooms on board. 33 guys in here. In the back of the ship, about 150, give or take. Everyone has their own rack. It's assigned to you. You'll notice we have all the K-Poc life jackets throughout the ship. These are horrible things. One of the worst inventions ever. It comes from the K-Poc tree, I believe. Basically, it was outlawed by the government because it was so bad. You go into the water, it actually soaks up the water after some hours. If you're not rescued and you're still wearing that thing, it would actually drag you underwater. You also have to be trained on how to properly put this on. If it's loose when you jump in the water, it can actually go up over your head and drag you under as well. You'll notice names on these life jackets. So these are Slater World War II crew members. The names on the bunk straps here are former volunteers that worked on the ship that have since passed away. So it's one way we remember and honor their service to the Slater.
There's space for about a quarter of the enlisted men here at forward berthing.
Oh.
Yeah, Steve McQueen in that movie didn't serve on board Destroyer Escort. He served on board a gunboat. But I think we have that there to show what a sea bag would look like when it was tied up.
Oh, I see. This is a sea bag.
You can see that it's got his mattress in it, right? And he can store his personal things in there as well.
So whenever we see seamen in the movies carrying that thing over their shoulder,
That's everything they own in the world. Yes. There's a demonstration locker here that would give you an idea of what sort of things the typical sailor would have and how much space they have to keep them in.
Through this hatch, you got your chief petty officer's quarters. To the left is just a smaller version of this room. It's the same setup. And you have a couple bathrooms, heads, straight forward, as well as the bosun's locker.
so the officers obviously get their own quarters, or they share two per quarter or per compartment. But these guys, the enlisted sailors, would.
They're 3 high, yeah. So if it's a night after you have chili or something, imagine the guy above you sleeping.
Yeah.
Now, for the most part, most sailors wanted to sleep on the top. You would think you would want to sleep on the bottom. The ship is rolling side to side. If you tumble out in the middle of your sleep, you're only going to fall about a foot down here compared to about 5 feet on top. But really, to get up and down, you're climbing. So you're going to be stepping on the guys under you. That's not fun. But also their foot lockers, where they store their belongings, this little square, it's below the bottom rack. If he needs to get to his uniform, he's sleeping. So you either have to wake him up, or you can lift him up with him still in it. He's not going to be happy about that. But a lot of times, guys go out to sea, especially back in World War II. Most guys have never seen the ocean, let alone been on a ship or a boat. They're going to get seasick. If you get seasick up here, it sucks. It's going to get on you. It's also going to drip down on the guys on you. You're going to make it rain. So you'll notice the pillows are actually staggered on either end. So if the guy above you gets sick and does get on you, hopefully it lands on your feet, not your face.
Boy, they really do think of everything. And nothing on the ship, there's like nothing is taken for granted. It's like every square inch is made use of.
Yep.
It's like useful space.
Yeah, you'll notice there's more tables in here. It's overflow seating. If there's not room in the mess deck to eat, you can come in here to eat. Or if you get some free time, you can play cards. Gambling is not allowed, especially if it's with money. If you're caught doing that, you get in big trouble. So it's all just play. That's the outside of the ship right there. That is the hull. It's only about 3/8 of an inch thick on this level. So it's nothing. It's literally there to keep water from getting in. And we're going across the Atlantic hoping not to get attacked by a German U-boat. That is not going to protect us from a torpedo. But these ships are designed and the guys are trained well enough. If this part of the ship starts flooding or is actually torn off, you shut these watertight hatches quick enough, a third of the ship can be flooded or torn off. The other 2/3 will stay afloat. And you can still function. You can steer the ship all the way from the back. You can't see where you're going, but you can steer the ship. Redundancy. Navy loves having at least 2 of everything on board. So you have 2 radio rooms. You have multiple cruise quarters. You're not going to have all your officers sleeping above us. All the way in the back of the ship, you actually have room for about 4 more officers as well.
So the technique is once you get it where you want
The Blue Jackets manual.
Yes, the Navy Bible.
Ah.
So that's your basic training mechanism. Guys who are striking for a particular job might study the Blue Jackets manual and manuals involving that particular job. But they're going to take tests to pass to show that they've absorbed that knowledge and then be put into that slot and see if they can actually do the work. Because that really is the key. People can read until they're blue in the face, but if you can't actually do the job, you're not of any use.
Prince, we are 2/3 of the way back in the ship. And this is where our sick bay is located. So if you're injured or you wake up not feeling well, you're going to report here. That's an issue if you're in combat. So that's why we have the forward battle dressing station in the wardroom. We're kind of using it for storage right now, but this room was fully restored with medical equipment and of course the medical table, medical books.
Well, it's a full operating room.
Yeah, but you see, it's small.
Yeah,
You're only going to be able to see one patient at a time in here.
right.
So if you are attacked and you have a mass casualty event, it's going to be hard to treat everybody in here. So that's why
Right.
you need stations throughout the ship.
Mm-hmm. Similar lights above the dining table.
Yep. Yeah, those are surgical lights above the dining table. So we have all these uniforms on display. These are all from World War II destroyer escorts. A lot of these rates here actually no longer exist or were combined, but you know, we have World War II jumpers, we have chiefs uniforms, officers uniforms, we have foul weather gear, just rubber rain suit basically. This was from the Freiburger. But then we also have some fun things, such as this right here. So a lot of ships had softball teams. So this is a softball uniform from the USS Lauser. The Slater did have a softball team as well. We do have one of those uniforms right over here. But again, here's fuel tanks. Some of these would have been water as well, but you're sleeping right above fuel tanks, basically. As you continue through here, we have our laundry room. Of course, we're basically like a floating town. You gotta clean all your uniforms and your clothes. Otherwise, it's gonna be very stinky. So here's our laundry room, fully restored. This was restored by one of our long-term volunteers, Gary Sheedy. He's responsible for a lot of what you see on board the ship. So he fully restored this room. This is not original equipment. He actually built some of the equipment himself and also acquired others. How he acquired them, I don't know. Possibly stole them. But you just bring your ditty bag, your laundry bag back here and drop off your uniforms. Everything's going to have your name on it.
Are these records of other escorts?
Yeah, so this was started when we first became a museum like 25 years ago. So a lot of it was things you couldn't find online. So we try to keep either a binder or a file on each destroyer escort. We are missing a few, but a lot of it is obituaries. A crew member dies, their family will send us their obituary, and we'll keep it in here. If our radio room up front is destroyed or broken, we do have a backup here, the emergency radio room. It's not as fancy or as sophisticated as the main radio room, but you do have a couple things in here to take over basic communication. Damage control locker with all your damage control gear, firefighting equipment. If you're in the U.S. Navy, World War II and today, you were trained as firefighters. We also trained certain guys for damage control parties, but at the very least, everybody knows how put on this gear, put out a fire. Japanese Navy only trains certain guys. So if you attack their ship, killed or injured those guys, chances are that ship's gonna sink now. So one of the many things that set us apart, you have wooden plugs down in the chest here. You get a small leak in your hull, hammer the wooden plug inside. Because it's wood, it'll expand from soaking up the water and plug the hole for you. Unfortunately, if we take like a torpedo or just a larger bomb hit, that hole is gonna be way too big for these wooden plugs. So you're gonna come over, grab mattresses, push them up against that water coming in, try to shore it up with shoring timbers. It won't stop the flow of water, but it will lessen the flow. Give you enough time, get some pumps down there, pump the water out. This is the bathroom, the head, for your enlisted guys. It's not a toilet like you have today, it's just a trough with seats on it. There'll be a continuous flow of seawater going through and then flushing directly out into the ocean. So you get to sit next to two of your buddies as you do your business. Hopefully the guy sitting in the middle has like a newspaper or something we can all read together.
I'm thinking of the inclinometer Now, like what
yes.
happens when you're in the bathroom with a couple of guys taking a dump and you hit 70 degrees.
Oh yes, now everything's sloshing around.
So was there a night shift on the boat? I mean, it had to be operating with the crew 24 hours, right?
Yes, typically you would work 4 hours on and 4 hours off. That's going to go on throughout the day.
I see. So there could be people sleeping in these
Sure.
bunks
You
while
have to
there's
learn to
people
sleep
eating.
while other people are here eating. Now, if you're sleeping, most times people will be considerate and try and keep their voices down, but it's not like going to bed at home where it's quiet. It's also never dark here. If you look, there are red lights on this compartment at night to preserve your night vision. If you have to go to combat battle stations at night, you want your night vision already kicked in. So it's never going to be dark, it's never going to be quiet, it's never going to be still, it's always going to be moving. But you adapt. You get used to sleeping under those conditions.
So really know what's the purpose of that?
Simply repair, especially in combat. You need to figure out what things are and fix them quickly. Now the wiring bundles originally would have had metal labels on them, and most of them have either been painted over or removed, but this would have all been labeled as well. And again, that's so that you can make repairs quickly. When they're at their normal job, they're washing dishes for 4 hours. And they go to sleep, they get up, and what do? They wash dishes for 4 hours. But it's got to get done, because if you're going to feed people, you need clean dishes.
Is generally the lowest ranking person washing dishes?
Yes. Now, you can become what's called a striker. You can strike for a better job. It doesn't mean strike in the terms of modern labor unions. You can try. You can attempt to get a better job. You come to this environment as a new sailor and you're assigned menial work, and you look around and you say, oh, that looks interesting. I think I'd like to try and do that. Well, you're going to study. You're going to take exams. You're going to show aptitude for that job. And you can progress up the ladder and hopefully get the job you want. Now, you may get the job and find out, this isn't really for me. Well, then you can strike for another job. So there's mobility here. You don't just have to stay low level all the time. But the low level work still has to get done. One of the challenges for the officers here in the war is that periodically they're going to take experienced men off of the ship and assign them to new construction. They're going to bring new sailors on straight out of boot camp. So you're getting constant little influxes of people who are absolutely untrained. And you have to start them at the bottom. You're never going to have a solidly, completely trained crew, because there's always movement here. And because they're taking away experienced people, you need to shuffle people around and fill those slots with people you think can do the job. So there's a constant headache of trying to reassign people within the ship and keep the ship functional.
So that indicates to me that experience is at a premium. So
Yes.
having an experienced NCO or officer, you move them where you need them the most.
Correct. And by 1945, a new United States ship can have up to 80% of the crew be new sailors straight out of boot camp. So you're constantly getting new people in. Now, the older people will train the new people, but it never really settles, if you know what I mean. There's never a point where you can say, I've got everything exactly the way I want it, everybody's trained and good at what they do, and now I can relax. Because as soon as you relax, they take some of your people away. Modern warships now have air conditioning. This ship has no air conditioning. And they have toilets and stalls instead of communal toilets. And they have better food because you have better food preservation techniques. And you have communications. You can talk to your family any time of the day or night that you can get a hold of them. You know, these guys, especially in the Pacific where the distances were bigger, they might get a month's worth of mail in a single day when the ship with the mail finally catches up to them. And typically what they would do is they would organize the letters by postmark and read the most current letter first to make sure everything was okay at home, and then go back and start at the beginning and read them in order. Mm-hmm. So mail is really important to these guys. It's the only connection they have with home.
Was alone at sea with just their buddies.
Yep.
No girlfriend.
Well, especially for the kids coming up, it's hard to explain how out of touch everybody is here.
Right. There is no instantaneous wormhole communication.
Correct.
Right.
There's no internet, there's no news. You will get, magazines and newspapers and stuff that people on the ship subscribe to, but by the time they get here, they're way out of date. And you can occasionally pick up shortwave news broadcasts, but again, the news in World War II is all colored by which side the news is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys would listen to people like Tokyo Rose because Tokyo Rose played good music. And they discounted everything she said, but they listened for the music itself.
Mm.
So as you come up this ladder, just duck.
Do you think that different ships and their crews were competitive on?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes. No question about it. They had sports teams to the extent that they could. They're competitive in their combat records and what they've done. They vie for who's got the best food, who's got the best officers, all that stuff. And that's constantly going on. People are people.